Biden, the people in charge right now, say it without saying it that clearly. The pain that those folks are feeling all across America, the anxiety they feel, is a necessary price to pay for saving the planet from climate change. It's exactly what Pompeo was saying. It's true. That's what they really think. They don't care that you can't take your kids to the movies because they have to save the planet from CO2. While they're flying on private jets, you can't take your kids to the movies. That's how they actually feel.
Suddenly, Democrats are speaking aloud what we've been talking about on this show for a year now, which is Biden's incompetence and whether it is possible for him to run for re-election in 2024, not even based necessarily on the incompetence, but based on the growing level of failures when it comes to media availabilities, based on all the disasters that are going on around him, and whether at 82 years old, he would be capable even physically of being president all the way up to 86. Now, I think Buck and I, and certainly a huge percentage of you, are right in that Biden isn't physically up to the job right now. But what's unique is suddenly, after a year, Buck, where we were told, oh, how dare you question the mental faculties of Joe Biden, despite the fact, by the way, that they would have Robert De Niro on CNN to talk about his belief that Donald Trump wasn't mentally worthy of being president. And they talked about the 25th Amendment all the time, still talking about it in relation to January 6th. Don Lemon actually asked the worst White House press secretary of all time, Karen Jean-Pierre, last night on CNN, is Biden up to the job in terms of being able to run for re-election in 2024?
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh, my gosh. He's the president of the United States. You know, I can't even keep up with it. We just got back from New Mexico. We just got back from California. That is not a question that we should be even asking. Just look at the work that he does. Look how he's delivering for the American public.
It is absolutely a question that we not only should be asking, we all know the answer to it already, but really for Don Lemon to ask it is just getting it on the record. And it's at some level, I think, requiring the White House must think that we the American people, really dumb. You know, Joe Biden said, we remember this, that Hunter Biden was the smartest person he had ever met when they were asking,
oh, yeah,
why were they paying your son $80,000 a month for being on the board of a Ukrainian gas company? Like, oh, he's the smartest person I've ever met. Yeah, sure. We're all really dumb. We all believe that. And with Karine Jean-Pierre talking about how Biden has more energy than everybody else, I mean, he's visibly confused sometimes in his role as the president. He's shuffling around like it. Look, and again, I hate that they put us in this position where we're talking about a guy, because we're all, hopefully, God willing, we're all going to last.
I hope I get to
our
almost
80s
80
or 90s, and but he's the president. He's the commander in chief, and this is having a real impact on a lot of people's lives. That you have somebody he was never impressive. I mean, he was never somebody of special cognitive ability. I mean, Biden was always kind of a jackass. But now he's too old even if he had been previously someone who was really erudite, somebody who really had a lot of acumen. No, not good.
Here's the way I would put it. We have 50 people working at Outkick-ish now. Now, it's been purchased by Fox. We don't have a single job at my media company that I sold to Fox that Joe Biden could do. Not one. And Buck, if Joe Biden said, like, let's say we're out on vacation, you and we said, hey, you know what? We'll let Joe Biden sit in and do 1 3-hour show, Clay and Buck. Now, look, I'm not claiming that people would be like ecstatic about that, but I'm saying, hey, we give him a 3-hour window. He has to sit down just like you and I do in front of the mic and talk for 3 hours, make cogent arguments, have audio clips that he wants to play to make the case. Buck, it would be an unmitigated disaster. Joe Biden right now could not do our job. And if you were out there listening to Joe Biden talk on the radio for 3 hours, just one day, you would think to yourself, oh my goodness, what in the world is going on that this guy's the leader of the free world? And we're talking about gas prices. Is there a single person out there that believes Joe Biden could run a gas station anywhere in America right now? He's trying to solve gas prices for the entire country. Would he be capable of working at any gas station in America? I think the answer is no.
And it's also insulting to our intelligence that on the one hand, they act like, by the way, gas price today, all-time high. We hadn't even announced all-time high today. Not just.
Unfortunately, every day, probably for the next 60 days, I feel like it's going to be new highs.
We are at as I speak to you right now, all across the country, the price of gas is the highest on average it has ever been in the history of the republic. And they want you to believe that this isn't anything having to do with their policies, but they do want us all to transition to green energy. They are using the Defense Production Act for solar panels. Here is former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo saying, let's get real here, folks.
Before he even turned to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and to the Qataris, to the Emiratis, folks that could provide us not only crude oil, but natural gas as well. It's the right thing to do. I hope that he actually delivers on it. He promised in the campaign he wouldn't do it. He said that, yeah, we'd be willing to have pain at the pump, have the American people suffer. Every action they've taken suggests they have intended that the American people suffer from these high prices so that we can convert to solar panels and windmills. Something that's just not going to happen. I hope he does. I hope he goes there. I hope they have a good constructive conversation about how to manage these prices. It's not just about cars. And right. I was with family this weekend who said that their kids' travel soccer teams playing only half of their games now because parents can't afford to drive their kids to these games that are a little ways off.
It's also price-based as well for products that people buy. 50% of petroleum goes into stuff you are buying.
Yeah.
Which means that and also that milk you're buying that's more expensive. I mean, look, granted, I drink some fancy milk sometimes, but it's still milk, right? Like it's actual cow milk. I saw something at Whole Foods. There was milk, and I think it was a gallon, but it was like $13.
The only place, by the way, that I shop is Costco and Amazon. So I am not very cognizant of what stuff costs in general, except for gas. And every time I pull into a gas station to fill up, I think, man, this guy is a disaster. And I'm fortunate enough, look, I've been lots of times I wasn't, where I don't have to think, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this because of what I just had to fill up my gas tank to do. It's summer. There's a lot of people out there who are thinking, I'd like to take my kid to go see this new Jurassic Park movie, or I'd like to take my kid to go see to the water park or whatever else, or just take my family out for dinner. The consequences of high gas prices take away from a lot of people their ability to do the fun things in life. Buck, my grandma used to work, and she said my grandfather worked to live, and she worked to make life worth living. And there are a lot of people out there in that world, right, where you're grinding as hard as you can. We know we got a lot of people out there listening to us. And not only you, but your wife are working as hard as you can. And it's not making life worth living because of what inflation and Joe Biden has meant to your paycheck. I can feel it. I know the American public can feel it.
It feels like there are a lot of people in charge right now who have not had that feeling of maybe ever. I think in a lot of cases ever, depending on who we're talking about. But, I'm not gonna buy the steak tonight. I'm gonna get the frozen ground turkey because I got to watch my budget.
That's right.
They've never had that experience of going to the ATM machine and realizing I'm basically out of money. As an adult, I've had that experience where
that's not a good feeling.
I'm worth like a couple of $100s on paper. It's not a good feeling. It's not easy.
That's not a good feeling at all. Or where you get there and you're like, man, I can barely even cover the withdrawal fees, right now when I'm trying to take out some cash. And I talked about just a couple weeks ago, and I don't know who it was, but right in front of me, the person had bought 1 gallon, right? Yeah. I mean, it was 1 gallon of gas was $4.50, and that's where people are right now.
This is why when Biden goes and gives this speech, the AFL-CIO, and he's doing the whole, I care so much about the unions. If you're an electrician, if you're a trucker, if you're a carpenter, a tradesman of some kind, you're people that are working long hours for not a lot of money, and you're hearing this stuff from Biden. Keep in mind, the anxiety that you're describing that people feel when they can't do the fun things, not going out to dinner, or not getting the food that they necessarily want because they're going with the less expensive stuff. I also hate when Bill Gates and all them, oh, you don't eat hamburgers, eat lentils. Like this, you hear this from the elites a lot. Biden, the people in charge right now, say it without saying it that clearly. The pain that those folks are feeling all across America, the anxiety they feel, is a necessary price to pay for saving the planet from climate change. It's exactly what Pompeo was saying. It's true. That's what they really think. They don't care that you can't take your kids to the movies because they have to save the planet from CO2. While they're flying on private jets, you can't take your kids to the movies. That's how they actually feel.
Yeah, and look, I also know it's sports season. There's a lot of people out there saying, hey, you can make it through another year with those tennis shoes. You can make it through another year with those cleats. Maybe you can't even be able to play Little League because mom and dad can't afford to get you to every game. This is real. And so when Joe Biden has the address like he did today, frankly, it disgusts me because he's lying to everybody and he is so incompetent at this job. And Buck, you and I aren't rooting for him to fail because when the president of the United States fails on every level, we all bear the consequences. And unfortunately, the Biden's touch is real. Everything Joe Biden touches turns to crap.